Finn sat beside his 4-year-old daughter's hospital bed, clutching a thick stack of unpaid medical bills. He was exhausted, broken, and running out of time to save her life. That was when two men in dark suits stepped into the dim room with an impossible offer. The powerful Sterling family needed a legal husband for Arya Sterling, the ruthless, brilliant billionaire CEO currently lying in a deep coma across town. Her corrupt business partners were trying to steal her company, and only a legal spouse could protect her empire. In exchange for Finn's signature, every single penny of his daughter's life-saving treatments would be paid in full. Finn had no choice. With trembling fingers, he signed his name beside the motionless woman's legal stamp. Just like that, he became the husband of a sleeping stranger. But as the lawyers packed the papers, they whispered a chilling warning. Arya was dangerous, and if she ever opened her eyes, she would destroy the man who dared to call her his wife. Finn held his 4-year-old daughter, Lily, close against his chest as the private elevator doors opened into a world he had never seen before. The penthouse was enormous, grand, and chillingly quiet. Polished marble floors stretched under high ceilings, reflecting the cold glow of the city lights below. There were no soft blankets on the modern couches. There were no colorful drawings pinned to the refrigerator. Every corner of the home was sharp, expensive, and completely devoid of human warmth. For a man who had spent years counting pennies in noisy hospital hallways, the silence of this home felt heavy. Lily rested her small head on Finn's shoulder, her little fingers clinging to his worn jacket. She looked around the vast living room with wide, tired eyes and asked softly if an invisible princess lived here. Finn knelt on the cold floor and pressed a gentle kiss against her forehead. He whispered that the woman who owned this castle was asleep, resting in a place where no one could reach her. The next morning, the Sterling family's chief assistant arrived to deliver a thick folder of rules. The assistant looked at Finn's faded jeans and tired eyes with barely hidden judgment. He told Finn that his role was simple: remain silent, stay out of the public eye, and keep his child quiet. Finn was forbidden from stepping inside Arya's private study on the 3rd floor. He was forbidden from making any public statements about their union. The family wanted him to exist like a shadow. Finn learned more about his sleeping bride from the glossy magazines left on the glass coffee tables. Arya Sterling had been called the Iron Queen of the tech world. She had fought her way to the top of an unforgiving industry, trusting no one and building an empire with sharp intelligence and sheer willpower. But 6 months ago, a terrible crash on a rainy highway had stolen her strength and silenced her voice. The doctors said the chances of her waking up were almost zero. To the world, she was a fallen titan. To her greedy board of directors, she was a problem to be solved. Late that evening, after Lily had fallen into a deep, peaceful sleep in her new bedroom, Finn walked through the quiet corridors alone. He stopped before a massive portrait hanging near the grand staircase. Arya looked back at him with fierce, intelligent eyes and a calm, unreadable expression. Everyone spoke of her cruelty and power, but looking closely into her painted eyes, Finn saw something different. He saw the exhausting burden of a woman who had spent her entire life defending herself from everyone around her. If you have ever felt completely alone while carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Finn looked down at the simple gold wedding band resting on his left hand. It felt strange, cold, and entirely unearned. He had agreed to this paper marriage purely out of desperation to keep his little girl alive. Yet, standing in the middle of Arya's silent, empty palace, a strange ache settled deep inside his chest. He was legally married to a woman whose voice he had never heard. And for the first time, Finn felt an overwhelming urge to go to her, to sit beside her bed, and to let her know that she was no longer alone. Every night at 9 o'clock, after Lily was fast asleep with her favorite teddy bear tucked beneath her chin, Finn slipped out into the cold night air. He drove through the quiet city streets to the private medical center on the hill. The VIP floor was always deserted, bathed in the soft, low hum of fluorescent lights. Room 402 belonged to Arya. The rhythmic beeping of the heart monitor was the only sound that greeted him as he pushed the heavy door open. Arya lay beneath pristine white blankets, surrounded by plastic tubes and cold machines. Her long dark hair was brushed over the pillow, and her pale face looked surprisingly young and peaceful. Stripped of the sharp suits and fierce armor she once wore to battle the corporate world, she looked fragile. Finn pulled a small vinyl chair close to the edge of the bed and sat down, just as he had done every night for the past 3 months. At first, he had visited out of a heavy sense of guilt and duty. Her money was saving his daughter's life, and he felt he owed her his presence. But soon, the quiet room became the only place where he could breathe. Finn began to speak softly into the dim space. He told her about Lily's laughter when she learned to draw a bright yellow sun on the kitchen tiles. He told her about the crushing years of poverty, his deepest fears as a father, and the silent grief he carried inside his heart. He shared the secret pains he had never dared to say out loud to anyone in the world. Arya never moved, but Finn found himself watching her chest rise and fall with steady grace. He noticed how her fingers were long and delicate, unaccustomed to this forced stillness. One night, he gently reached out and smoothed a stray lock of hair away from her forehead. His callous thumb brushed against her cool skin, and a sudden warmth rushed through his veins. He wondered what her real voice sounded like. He wondered what dreams filled the dark ocean of her mind. He was pouring his soul out to a silent room, yet sitting beside her, Finn felt less alone than ever before. If you believe that true love can grow in the quietest and most unexpected places, please leave a comment down below and share your thoughts. Slowly, without warning, Finn's gratitude turned into something far deeper and much more dangerous. He was falling in love with a woman who had never looked into his eyes. He brought fresh white lilies every Tuesday and placed them by her bedside table, hoping the sweet fragrance might reach her. He read her chapters from worn books, speaking slowly, hoping his voice would act as a guiding light to pull her back from the dark. Every night before walking out into the cold, Finn gently wrapped his warm hands around her cool, motionless fingers. He leaned down and whispered a quiet promise that he would return tomorrow. He knew he was giving his heart to a ghost, a sleeping billionaire who might never wake up to love him back. But as he looked at her quiet face under the moonlight, Finn realized he was already lost in her silence. A heavy storm hammered against the floor-to-ceiling glass of the penthouse, casting dark shadows across the grand hallway. Lily sat on the living room rug, happily drawing pictures, when her favorite red crayon rolled beneath the double doors of the forbidden third-floor office. Finn knew the Sterling family's strict rules. He was never supposed to set foot inside Arya's private workspace. But the heavy wooden door was slightly open, moving gently in the cold draft. Finn stepped inside just to retrieve the crayon, intending to walk right back out. The room was dark and silent, filled with the scent of old paper, vanilla, and cedarwood. It felt remarkably different from the rest of the cold house. On the corner of a massive mahogany desk sat an antique wooden box with an unlocked brass clasp. Inside rested a stack of worn, leather-bound notebooks. Finn hesitated, knowing he was crossing an invisible line. But a powerful, quiet force pulled him forward. With careful hands, he opened the top journal, dated only days before the terrible car crash. The handwriting on the creamy pages was sharp and elegant, but the words carried a deep, invisible sorrow. As Finn read, the cold image of the ruthless billionaire dissolved into thin air. Arya wrote about the suffocating loneliness of her life. She wrote about eating cold dinners alone in empty boardrooms, surrounded by people who only wanted her wealth, her name, or her power. In one heartbreaking entry, she confessed her deepest, most hidden wish. She did not want another company or another $1 billion. She wanted a simple life. She dreamed of a small cottage by the sea, the sound of children laughing in the garden, and a partner who would hold her hand without asking for anything in return. The fierce titan the world feared was actually an exhausted woman who had built walls of ice just to keep her fragile heart from breaking. If you have ever had to put on a brave face while hiding your deepest pain from the world, please hit the like button and subscribe to stay part of this journey. A heavy ache settled deep in Finn's chest as he gently turned the fragile pages. All his life, he had felt invisible and broken, fighting every day just to keep a roof over his daughter's head. In Arya's private words, he saw a reflection of his own bruised spirit. She had everything the world could offer, yet she had been starving for the exact same thing he was: genuine love, safety, and a place to truly belong. Finn gently closed the book and held it against his chest. He was no longer looking at a sleeping stranger or a business contract. He was looking at a woman he understood down to her very soul. He made a silent promise to the quiet room that he would protect her secrets with his life. Suddenly, the phone in his pocket vibrated violently, shattering the quiet room. The caller ID showed the private medical center. Finn's heart leaped into his throat as he pressed the phone to his ear with trembling hands. The head doctor's voice came through the speaker, breathless and trembling with pure shock. Aria's vital signs were spiking erratically, and something completely unprecedented was happening in room 402. Finn dropped the keys, grabbed his coat, and ran into the pouring rain. Finn burst through the heavy doors of room 402, drenched in rain and gasping for breath. The harsh fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, and a team of doctors stood frozen around the bed. Finn took a single, trembling step forward. The steady, mechanical beeping of the heart monitor had changed into a rapid, frantic rhythm. And there, beneath the white hospital sheets, Aria's long dark eyelashes began to flutter. Finn's heart hammered violently against his ribs. For 6 long months he had watched her sleep. He had whispered his deepest secrets to her motionless face. He had held her cold hand in the dark, praying for a miracle that the doctors said was impossible. Slowly, painfully, Aria opened her eyes. Her gaze was not soft or sleepy. Her dark eyes were sharp, striking, and filled with a fierce, burning light. She blinked against the bright room, struggling to focus on the figures surrounding her. Finn stepped closer, tears of pure relief blurring his vision. He wanted to tell her she was safe. He wanted to tell her that she had survived the darkness. Aria, Finn whispered, his voice shaking with overwhelming emotion. The moment the sound left his lips, Aria's head snapped toward him. The vulnerability on her pale face vanished instantly, replaced by a cold, impenetrable wall of ice. She tried to sit up, wincing from the sudden pain in her stiff muscles, but her fierce pride would not allow her to stay down. Her sharp gaze locked onto Finn's worn jacket and tired, tear-stained face. "Who are you?" she demanded. Her voice was hoarse and dry, but the authority in it was razor-sharp. "Why are you in my room?" The head doctor quickly stepped forward, explaining that Aria had been in a deep coma for half a year. He gently added that the man standing before her was not a trespasser, but her legal husband. The color drained from Aria's face, only to be replaced by a wave of pure, boiling rage. She looked down at the gold band on Finn's left hand, then back up into his eyes. In an instant, every defense mechanism she had spent a lifetime building snapped into place. She did not know about the hours Finn had spent sitting by her bed. She did not know about the fresh lilies he brought every Tuesday or the gentle promises he had whispered into the dark. All she saw was a strange man in faded clothes who had taken advantage of her helpless state. If you are waiting to see if Aria will ever realize how much Finn truly cares for her, please subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss the next part. "A husband," Aria scoffed, her voice dripping with ice and bitter venom. "You are an opportunist. You saw a defenseless woman with an empire and decided to steal your way into my life." "Aria, please listen to me," Finn begged, his heart shattering into 1,000 pieces. "It wasn't like that. Your family needed someone to protect your company. I never wanted to take anything from you. Get out," Aria spat, her eyes blazing with fury. "Get out of my sight. Call my lawyers immediately. I want this disgusting fraud removed from my house, stripped of my name, and thrown into the street where he belongs." Finn stood paralyzed as security guards stepped into the room. The woman he loved had finally opened her eyes, only to look at him with pure hatred. The cold legal truth hit Aria like a slap in the face. Standing in her penthouse living room, surrounded by her chief legal advisors, she learned the bitter reality of her situation. The contract her family created to protect her empire was ironclad. To prevent a hostile takeover by her corrupt board of directors, the marriage had to remain legally intact for 1 full year. If she divorced Finn today, she would lose controlling interest in the tech empire she had spent her entire youth building. She was trapped. Aria made sure Finn felt the full weight of her resentment every single day. She treated him like an unwanted shadow in her own home. She had locks installed on her private wing and refused to eat at the same table. When they passed each other in the wide marble hallways, her eyes were sharp as broken glass. Finn never fought back. He did not yell, argue, or demand her respect. Instead, he treated her with a gentle, patient kindness that only infuriated her more. When she worked late into the night, nursing her lingering headaches, he left warm chamomile tea and pain medicine outside her closed door without knocking. When she skipped meals, he prepared simple, nourishing dinners and left them covered on the kitchen counter. He asked for nothing, took nothing, and looked at her not with greed, but with a deep, silent sorrow that confused her to her core. Then came little Lily. The 4-year-old child knew nothing about corporate takeovers, marriage contracts, or billion-dollar fortunes. To Lily, Arya was simply the beautiful sleeping lady who had finally woken up. One afternoon, while Arya was sitting on the couch reviewing financial documents, tiny footsteps pattered across the hardwood floor. Lily walked up to the intimidating CEO, clutching a colorful crayon drawing. Arya stiffened, ready to call for Finn to remove the child. But before she could speak, Lily gently placed a small, warm hand on Arya's knee. "Auntie Arya," Lily whispered with big, bright eyes, "are you still hurting? Daddy told me you were brave, but sometimes brave people need hugs." Arya froze. The breath caught in her throat. She looked down at the messy drawing of 3 smiling figures holding hands beneath a bright yellow sun. For the first time in years, the iron shield around Arya's heart fractured. No one had ever touched her with such pure, unconditional kindness. If you believe that the innocence of a child can heal even the most broken hearts, please hit the like button and leave a sweet comment down below. Finn rushed into the room, looking terrified that his daughter had crossed a forbidden line. He quickly apologized and tried to pull Lily back into his arms. But Arya raised a trembling hand, stopping him. She did not yell. She did not scowl. Her dark eyes shifted between the frightened little girl and the exhausted, devoted father who was shielding her with his own body. In that silent moment, Arya saw the fierce, unconditional love Finn had for his daughter. It was the exact kind of love she had yearned for in her private journals, the love she thought did not exist in the world. The suspicion in Arya's mind began to wage a desperate war against the aching truth in her chest. If Finn was really the greedy con artist she believed him to be, why did his hands shake only when his child was scared? And why did his eyes look at Arya not with hunger for her wealth, but with a heartbreaking tenderness that made her soul tremble? Arya could not silence the doubts tearing through her mind. Desperate to protect her guarded heart, she ordered her private security team to recover the archived surveillance footage from room 402. She expected to uncover proof of a greedy opportunist scheming for her fortune. Sitting alone in her dimly lit office, she clicked the video files and pressed play. What appeared on the glowing screen shattered Arya's entire world. There was Finn night after night, month after month. She watched him walk into her cold hospital room with heavy, exhausted steps, always carrying a fresh bunch of white lilies. She watched him sit in that uncomfortable vinyl chair for hours, gently cradling her lifeless hand against his warm cheek. The clear security audio picked up his soft, trembling voice. He spoke to her about his daily struggles, his daughter's sweet laughter, and the deep respect he felt for Arya's resilient spirit. He whispered that she was the bravest fighter he had ever known, begging her to keep holding on to life. He never touched her personal belongings. He never spoke of her wealth. He simply sat beside her in the terrifying darkness so that she would never have to be alone. Tears poured down Arya's cheeks, burning with pure remorse. The man she had treated with cruel disdain had loved her when she was nothing more than a silent ghost. If this story of sacrifice, patience, and true devotion touched your heart, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Arya pushed away from the desk and ran down the grand hallway toward Finn's room. The door stood wide open. 2 worn suitcases were packed beside the bed. Finn was kneeling on the floor, gently zipping up Lily's little coat, preparing to walk out of the penthouse forever to spare Arya any more distress. When Finn turned around and saw Arya standing in the doorway, her face stained with tears, his chest tightened with worry, he immediately assumed he had crossed another boundary. He lowered his eyes, apologizing softly, and promised they would be gone in just a few minutes. Arya did not let him finish. She crossed the room in 3 quick steps and threw her arms tightly around his neck, burying her face into his worn flannel shirt. Finn froze in absolute shock. His hands hovered in the air before he finally wrapped his strong arms around her trembling frame. Arya pulled back slightly, her dark eyes shining with an emotion she had never shown to another human being. She took his calloused hands into hers, their matching gold wedding bands pressing together in the warm light. With a breaking voice, she told him she had seen the hospital tapes. She confessed that she had spent her entire life fighting enemies in the cold, but he had stood guard over her soul when she had no strength left to fight. Arya did not care about the business takeover, the hostile board members, or the legal contracts anymore. She gently gathered little Lily into the embrace and looked up at Finn with fierce, unwavering devotion. She asked him to stay with her, not as a fake husband on a piece of paper, but as the real love of her life. Finn pulled them both against his chest, tears of joy spilling over his smiling face. In that quiet, sacred moment, the cold glass fortress melted away, and a broken house finally became a home.